What made you want to sign King Von?
Cause he got a whole story behind him. You know what I'm saying? He from oblock.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? That should speak for itself.
First off, I want to congratulate you, like, from fighting what you done fought through to get a name in this industry. You know what I'm saying? Like, I salute you.
What's the story? What's your story?
My story, I just got out of jail for just beat a body in 2 attempts. Like, December? I just got out, started rapping shit.
Of course I know my want to kill me. I'm a very disrespectful person. I know what I did in my lifetime. You feel me? They don't know because they not out here with me.
Chicago had one of the most legendary movements in the history of rap when drill started in 2011. The genre took the world by surprise and blew up globally, but by 2015 the genre was declining, and by 2017 it was officially dead. But this wasn't the end of the story, because in 2018, King Von and FBG Duck brought the genre back from the dead and gave it a second chance and 2 more years of life. So in this video, we'll take a look at the resurrection of Chicago drill. This is part 2 of the story of Chicago drill, so if you haven't seen the first, go watch it, then come back. There'll be a link in the bio. Now, the last video ended in 2017 with G Herbo transitioning away from drill and Love Foe and C. Honcho slowing down. Drill was basically dead, so things were slow, but there was some motion up on the north side. Polo G started rapping, dropping his first ever song in June, and he started as strictly a drill rapper, but saw quick progress, gaining a lot of views and fans early on, and continued dropping throughout the rest of the year. Also up on the north side, Tay Sav was doing his best to keep Pappy's name alive and seeing a decent amount of success in his new career. Going into 2018, the Southside drill scene saw some motion and signs of a comeback early on. In January, Wooski decided that he was going to start rapping, and right off the bat, dropped one of the most disrespectful tracks in rap history. Wooski got the instrumental of Computers by Bobby Shmurda and Rowdy Rebel, and there's Durk, E-Day, and 15 dead 300 and 600 members. Disrespect is obviously extremely entertaining to the fans, and the song blew up and put Wooski's name out, as well as a huge target on his head, literally. This same month, FBG Duck dropped Slide. As I mentioned in the last video, Duck was a drill pioneer and had been rapping since 2011, but this was his first taste of mainstream success. The record took off, gaining millions of views and earning Duck his first record deal 7 years into his career. So early on, Tookaville had some motion on the rap scene. Over on the other side, Lil Durk was in the process of reviving his career. He had been stuck at Def Jam, barely keeping himself afloat, but in 2018, he finally got out and had a chance to take back control over his career. He started the year strong, dropping Just Cause Y'all Waited in March, and the fans were gravitating to the new direction Durk was going in. It's also important to note that this project didn't have any drill songs on it. Despite Wooski's super disrespectful computer freestyle, Durk hadn't felt the need to respond and was only making melodic auto-tune singing songs. Even though Durk wasn't on any type of disrespectful timing, others in his camp were. In December of 2017, King Von had beat his case and came home. Since 2014, Von had been sitting in the county for a body, but due to his co-defendant and witnesses not showing up, he was able to get out scot-free. A couple of months after Von got out, he decided to try his hand at rap and teamed up with THF Bezu to drop his first song ever, Beat That Body. Now, Chicago is a city where killers can become as famous as rappers, so Von was already known before he ever started rapping, and even though he had some fame, he didn't take off immediately. He followed Beat That Body with songs like Problems and War With Us. By 2018, a lot of the biggest artists had transitioned away from drill and calmed down slightly from the antics of earlier years. But Von had been locked up in 2014 when drill was still in its prime. So he was sort of like a 2014 drill rapper that had been frozen in time and thawed out in 2018. He was constantly dissing his ops and smoking Tuka on the regular. Von was disrespectful, but in September of 2018, the world saw a new level of disrespect when Drilla dropped 51 Dead Opps. Now, there's a debate on the actual number of Dead Opps dissed, but it was over 40, and the song could possibly be the most disrespectful track to ever come out the city. So naturally, It went viral and had people all over the country reacting to it. The very next day after 51 Dead Opps dropped, Durk dropped a song called No Auto. Despite the timing, the song most likely had nothing to do with 51 Dead Opps because it didn't have any disses. But it marked a shift in Durk's career. For the previous couple of years, Durk had been making strictly melodic songs with heavy auto-tune, but No Auto ended up blowing up and reminded Durk that the fans still wanted to hear him make drill. And to this day, he'll reference the song whenever he makes one of these types of records. About a month after No Auto, Wooski's ops finally got to him. One of his friends had recently passed and he was attending a funeral. His ops slid and ended up catching him outside the church and popping him in the head. But miraculously, he survived. The bullet did a lot of damage and appeared to slow him down, but the fact that he's living and not a vegetable is still a W. The whole story was somewhat documented on the internet, from Woosie's computer freestyle in January to him getting popped in October, and this ended up bringing more attention back to the scene. Towards late 2018, drill was showing some signs of life, and in December, King Von dropped Crazy Story. In all the years of drill, barely anybody had ever thought to tell stories. Young Pappy had his Shorty with a 40 series, but these were songs that only real fans knew. Crazy Story went viral and was the first time the majority of fans had ever heard a drill rapper tell a story, and Von had a natural talent for it. Von also used the songs as another opportunity to diss his ops, and made sure that everyone knew he wasn't from 63rd. Crazy Story was a big record. It wasn't a mainstream hit, but it got Von's name out and established him as more than just one of Durk's homies. The beat for Crazy Story was made by a producer called Chopsquad Dj. DJ had been a part of the early drill movement and produced a couple songs for Chief Keef, as well as helped to ghost produce for Young Chop. As the years had went on, he had developed a relationship with Durk, and when Von started rapping, he became his main producer, all the way from his first song ever. DJ played a big part in developing Von's sound and the new sound of Chicago in general, and Crazy Story helped to get his name out more. Crazy Story wasn't the only important song Von was on in December either. He also teamed up with Mimo 600 on a record called Exposin. The song was very disrespectful, with Mimo and Von dissing the C-stops like Tuka, Lil Mark, and Lil Scrap. FBG Duck heard the record and decided to respond. Throughout 2018, Duck had been minding his business. He wasn't dissing, and a lot of the songs he was dropping were more generic trap sounding and arguably not even really drill. But after hearing Exposing Me, he decided to go back to his roots. In March of 2019, he teamed up with his cousin Ruga to make an Exposing Me remix, which was aimed at King Von, Mimo 600, and both of their hoods. The song was very disrespectful, and at least 10 Dead Opps were named, including people like Odie, T-Roy, and Lil Steve. The song caught people's attention and got a lot of views. The song also set the trend of making freestyles on the Exposing Me beat, and the instrumental would continue to get passed around. Duck followed this up with a mixtape called This How I'm Coming 3, which also did well. Through 2019, Durk was still on his upper trajectory from 2018, but following No Auto, he started dropping more drill songs on top of the usual melodic ones. 2019 was shaping up to be a big year. Then in May, Durk and Von were listed as suspects in an attempted murder that happened in Atlanta, where one of them had allegedly shot a man in the parking lot of a varsity restaurant. They both ended up bonding out to stay on house arrest, and due to the conditions of the case, they can no longer be around each other anymore. The situation seemed bad, but it actually ended up bringing a lot of new attention and fans to Von, adding on to his already growing buzz. It was around this time that the first YouTube videos about Von started popping up. As time went on, they would do more and more digging and add to the growing myth around his history in the streets. In the meantime, Von was grinding on house arrest, putting out tracks like What It's Like and his Money Freestyle. He dropped his debut project Grandson Volume 1 in September. Grandson was a nickname he picked up in prison because the older inmates said he reminded him of the founder of the BDs, King David, who would have been old enough to be Von's grandfather. The project did well, and Von continued grinding and putting out songs. Around December, Duck had a change of heart from earlier on in the year and put out a song called Chicago Legends, where he paid respect to some of the fallen rappers in Chicago like JoJo, Lil Mark, Pappy, and Lil Mister. But he surprised the world when he paid homage to some of his ops, like Fredo Santana, OTF Nunu, and LA Capone. This was a huge statement and showed a lot of maturity and character on Duck's part. Unfortunately, none of his ops reciprocated this energy at all, or even acknowledged the realness of what Duck had just done. Von continued to diss Tooka at every chance he got, and he was starting to turn 63rd into a meme. In February of 2020, he dropped a song called Took Her to the O, and the song took off. This was another story song, but it got even bigger than Crazy Story. The song marked a spike in Von's career, and to this day is his most viewed and streamed song. Like every other song, he did 63rd, but on this particular song, he mentioned Duck by name, and this triggered Duck to respond. Duck dropped a song called I'm from 63rd, where he criticized Von for telling fictional stories, said he was Durk's pawn, and joked that his pants were too tight for him to tote a gun. Von didn't respond to this song because he was busy capitalizing on the new momentum from Took Her to the O, and he dropped his second project, LeVon James, in March. Between his hit single and new album, 2020 was the year the majority of the public first started hearing about Von. As a result of the new attention, people started digging into his past and finding out that he had lived a crazy life. Von had been very active in the streets, as well as on Twitter, and was known to go back and forth with ops and openly admit to catching bodies. There were also other people in Chicago on social media blaming him for certain deaths. On top of this, there was the fact that he had recently beaten a body, and anyone who looked into the case saw that it looked like Von did it and only beat the case because witnesses didn't show up and his co-defendant didn't testify. Combining all this information, it was very clear that Von was exactly what he said he was. The only thing that was alleged was his exact body count. To a clear-headed adult, there's obviously nothing good about taking lives. At the same time, authenticity usually wins, and rappers have been rapping about and glorifying violence and shooting people for the past 30 years, even though the majority of them never did it. So when someone comes along and it's obviously what they say they are, it's only natural that rap fans would gravitate towards them. On top of this, Von was charismatic and extremely entertaining and had a lot of personality. So combining all of these facts, it was a certified recipe for success. More and more people made videos about him, and the fans couldn't get enough. The video started going viral and got to the point where he was gaining fans off his image and history, as well as the music. He continued dropping songs like Grandson for President and Broke Ops, continuing the trend of disrespecting the ops at every opportunity. FBG Duck had already been going up off a slide in his Exposin Me remix, and Von taking off in early 2020 helped him out as well, especially because Von mentioned him by name in a hit song. Being the main op rapping, he also found himself in some of the videos that were coming out, and his popularity began to rise as well. After Chicago Legends, Duck had stopped dissing, and the majority of the songs he was dropping weren't even drill. You could see that he was trying to make good music and grow as an artist, but in July, he had a change of heart. It's unclear whether he was provoked from Von constantly dissing or something else, but Duck decided to drop a song called Dead Bitches, which is probably one of the most disrespectful ones of his entire career, where he dissed over 10 fallen oblock and 600 members. At this point, Duck had a solid following, and King Von was really starting to take off, so the song went viral and generated a lot of attention. Duck dropped another song after this. Then about a month later, he was in the Gold Coast, a rich shopping area in downtown Chicago, when 5 oblock members pulled up in a car, hopped out, and popped him. This was a huge loss for Tookaville and Chicago as a whole. Duck was basically one half of the new drill movement that had started in 2018, and his death hurt the movement badly. Due to the fact that Von had been beefing with him on records for the past 2 years, after Duck passed, Von saw a huge spike in his views. Everybody was rushing to make videos, and people were hearing about what had been going on between these two artists for the past 2 years for the first time. Von continued to drop bangers and ride the momentum up. He had the entire Chicago drill movement on his back. On October 30th, he dropped his third project, Welcome to O-Block. At this point, it was clear that he was on pace to be a star, but on November 6th, an incident happened that would put an end to all of this. Von was a real street dude, and he didn't mind smoke from anybody, and somehow he ended up in a beef with NBA YoungBoy. Many believe it had something to do with Von messing with one of YoungBoy's baby mamas, but whether or not this is true, Von being Von decided that he was going to continue to troll and take shots at YoungBoy whenever he could. So the beef continued to drag on. In the earlier stages of this beef, Von somehow ended up forming somewhat of a friendship with Quando Rondo. Obviously, when Quando realized that YoungBoy had problems with Von, he cut ties and took up YB's beef as his own. Von didn't like this switch up, and in an interview with Gilly and Wallow, he foreshadowed that he wanted to put hands on him if he got the chance.
You'll fuck with another nigga, but I guess he'll fuck with that nigga too. Harder than he fuck with you, so he don't fuck with you. You'll start seeing niggas get on following you and shit on Instagram and shit. So stop talking to you and shit. The nigga they let you know a nigga see you again and be there.
Yeah, on some hoe shit.
And you'll want to smack his ass on phone, but niggas you'll be wrong because niggas really ain't like that.
Fast forward to November 6th, a week after Welcome to Oblock dropped, and Von finally ran into Quando and did exactly what he said. He put hands on him, but one of Quando's homies named Lil Tim was around and had his pole on him, and he decided to up it on Von, hitting him 3 times. Von was taken to the hospital, but he didn't make it. This was basically the end of the Chicago drill resurgence. Von and Duck were the faces, and in the span of 3 months they were both gone, and so was the movement. Durk continued to put out drill songs here and there, and as time has gone on, artists like PGF Nook and Lil Zay Osama have emerged, so there is a drill scene, but the majority of fans agree that the movement as a whole officially ended in 2020 with the death of Von.